What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 6 of Let's Talk Football, Sis. Obviously, a little bit of a different episode this week because it is just me, myself, and I. My lovely and amazing co-host, Ange, is unfortunately sick. She's a teacher. It's back to school week, so all those little germy-ass kids got her sick, so she is down and out for the count. But fear not, I've got your back post-week 1 of NFL football, and as we move into week number 2 for all of your sit-start strategies, and I am so freaking excited to dive on in. Obviously, this is our first podcast episode after the entire week 1 wrapped season of NFL football. And I don't know about you guys, it was a fun ass week. And I am so excited to talk strategy as we continue to deep dive into fantasy. The week 1 of fantasy football is honestly just a clusterfuck, right? A lot of players underperformed, a lot of big names underperformed. So in the first part of this episode, we are going to do fantasy football stars from week 1. We're going to talk about an it'll buff out segment, AKA please don't make any freak out decisions to drop some of these elite guys who didn't perform in week 1. So we're going to do an it'll buff out segment. And then we're going to dive into some rookies of the week, some veterans of the week. And then we're going to go over every single week 2 matchup. So buckle in, baby. Maybe you're on the way to work. Maybe you grab yourself a beverage alongside of me here. I've got my superhero mug to kick off. And first, I just want to recap how we started fantasy football, or how we started NFL football kickoff week to begin with. If you guys didn't know, me and Ange had started like running a lot about a year ago. And this past week, me and her actually ran a 25K trail race, which, fun fact, is 15.5 miles, which was absolutely batshit insane. But we did that on Saturday. So we ran a 25K on Saturday. We did that first thing in the morning. We got our asses absolutely handed to us because a trail run is much different than actual street running. But we did that. We crushed that on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we were able to fully soak in an NFL Sunday rot day, which we talked about on our last podcast, our ideal rot days. And me and Ange lived up our best Sunday rot days ever. We didn't move. We laid in a horizontal position most of the day. We practiced our laying down planks like true champs and really soaked in the first NFL kickoff Sunday and are so excited to do it all over again outside of the 25K. This week as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the shit out of yourselves for the first NFL football Sunday. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode and let's talk fantasy football stars from week number 1. Now, these stars are not your typical stars, which is very apropos for week 1 of fantasy football, but guys like Daniel Jones showed up and showed out in week number 1. Does that mean I think you should go take Daniel Jones and start him this week? No. However, he did have a great week. Guys like Aaron Rodgers showed up and showed out in week number 1, giving all of us Steeler fans maybe just a little bit of hope for their offense this year, but who the fuck really knows? Another quarterback that really showed himself in week number 1, Justin Fields. He looked calm. He looked cool. And it really looked like the New York Jets offense was playing into Justin Fields' true strengths, which I think is a huge freaking win. Not only that, we got to see Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson back at it again, and the matchup was everything we wanted and more. So they looked great in week 1 as well. Now, we had a ton of quarterback letdowns, baby. So guys like Joe Burrow, who typically, chronically, always shits the bed in week 1. So don't freak out if you got Joey B. You're still going to go ahead and take another shot on him. But nonetheless, he didn't have a great week 1 appearance. Neither did Mr. Tua Tagovailoa, who at this point in your fantasy football draft should be dropped. He doesn't look good. The entire Miami team just doesn't look good. Maybe Mike McDaniel doesn't have a job very soon. But nonetheless, that entire team does not look good. So I wouldn't be touching Tua Tagovailoa with a 10-foot pole. Bryce Young, wow, we have high hopes for him. Maybe still this year. He did not have a great week 1 appearance. And then another guy, obviously, Bo Nix, had a few interceptions and a fumble, but don't worry, my boy Bo, he will bounce back. I'm not going to make any decisions on Bo Nix after week 1. Moving into our shining stars of running backs from week 1, we had none other than CMC Christian McCaffrey himself, who ended up looking great. And he showed himself as week number 1 as really being a true fantasy production workhorse for you as long as homeboy can stay healthy. He looked great. He's always going to be up on my injury radar because you never freaking know, but he looked great. And now that a lot of the 49ers appear to be hurt, he becomes an even better draft pick if you ended up snagging him. Travis Etienne, he looked wonderful with the Jags this past week, and he now becomes a running back that I'm going to consider starting every single week week until he shows me otherwise. Also, from the Jags, they did end up trading away Tank Bigsby, who was typically the number 2 to Travis Etienne. So just keep that in mind as well, which means I think they're really going to bet on Travis Etienne for the foreseeable future. Another guy who had a great week 1 appearance as a rookie, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, also known as Bill for short. If you didn't know, that's his nickname. He had a great week 1 appearance, and I think very soon he will end up taking over the backfield for the Commanders away from Eckler. So he's definitely a must watch and a keep your eye on kind of dude. Last but not least, we got Jacques Charbonnet, who appeared to be far more dominant in the Seahawks offense than Kenneth Walker. At this point, I'm a little fucking worried about Kenneth Walker, and I'm definitely preferencing Sharbs over Kenneth Walker right now because he really did just look dominant. We did hear rumblings in preseason that the offense really did like Sharbs, and it showed in week number 1 as well. Now, on the wide receiver side of the football, we had Emeka Abuka, baby. He really did make us all happy by scoring not 1, but 2 touchdowns in week number 1 and having a very fantasy dominant performance. So if you risked it for the biscuit and started the rookie, good for you, babe, because he showed up and showed out for you. Also, Deebo Samuels was used frequently in the Commanders offense, which just shows they can have 2 dominant wide receivers in Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuels, which is great news for any Deebo Samuels fantasy managers. How about Keon Coleman? Again, he appears to look great right now for the Bills, and in my opinion, is going to continue to shine as the wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen. Again, everyone said, bad rookie year. He didn't come out great last year. He got hurt last year. There's a lot of hope for this in him in this year, and I think he is slowly proving that to us as well. Obviously, another great breakout star from this week, Quentin Johnston. Now, again, am I going to taper my expectations with Quentin Johnston because he shares a role with so many other elite wide receivers? We got Ladd McConkey, we got Keenan Allen, we got Quentin Johnston, right? We also have Omarion Hampton, who is just the running back, but there's a lot of stars on that side of the football right now. So am I going to make any rash decisions and start Quentin Johnston over someone like an elite receiver like a DK Metcalf or a Devontae Adams? No. But if you can snag Quentin Johnston, he is a valuable wide receiver 3 start right now, along with Calvin Austin. He really did show himself as a prominent force of the Steelers offense. So again, would be a great wide receiver 2 option if you needed another high upside because somebody happened to get hurt on your roster. People who really pissed us off in week 1, and this is our It'll Buff Out segment here, is just please take a chill pill on these guys. Don't freak out. I know AJ Brown shit the bed for you and ruined your life on Thursday. I get it. It sucks, right? He did absolutely nothing, but I need you to collectively take a big old deep breath with me and say, I will not make rash judgments on AJ Brown just yet. They used a ton of their run offense against the Cowboys. They didn't have to throw the ball a ton. And I do believe that they will continue to use their passing offense far more frequently throughout the year. So I know that AJ Brown has your panties in a little bit of a bunch, my friends, but don't freak out. Shit will, say it with me, buff out for AJ Brown, okay? He's definitely a must start for me in week number 2. Tyreek Hill, I am officially holding my breath, okay? I have no idea what's happening on this side of that offense. I don't know how long Tyreek Hill will be with the Miami Dolphins at this point. I might give him one more shot before I reconsider him as a starting option because that offense is in fucking shambles right now. Nico Collins, again, didn't have a great week 1 performance, but that doesn't mean I'm going to deviate from him by any means. Same thing with Brian Thomas Jr. Guys, these are big names that I think sometimes we can see low scoring points and immediately think, sit. Don't do that, right? Just like I don't want you to see guys who score big like Quentin Johnston and think I immediately need to start him because that's not going to work out well for you, right? A guy like Brian Thomas Jr., a guy like Nico Collins, a guy like AJ Brown is going to be starting over a Quentin Johnston, a Calvin Austin every single time. So please don't lose sight of that. Brian Thomas Jr. didn't have a great week 1, but he's still an elite wide receiver run on the Jaguars, and you're still starting him every single week for right now, unless something major were to come out otherwise. Same thing with someone like Malik Neighbors. He didn't have a great week 1, right? However, he doesn't appear to be a bad target. We're just unsure about what Russell Wilson's going to be able to do on the other side, on the side of that football. I just dislike Russell Wilson. I don't have any trust in him as a quarterback. However, I don't think he'll be the quarterback for that much longer. So I think once there is a quarterback change to Jackson Dart, that Malik Neighbors might have far more fantasy potential from there. So you're not getting rid of him and you're still starting him. Puka Nacua, gosh, that man can almost be concussed, 2 head-to-head hits, bleeding from the face, large patch on his forehead, and he's still that motherfucking guy. I mean, Puka Nacua, while I think that's my vet of the week. He absolutely smashed the competition and just is he's just such a badass. What else can we say? I love to see it. Some tight ends that we really loved this week, Tyler Warren. We had high hopes. He was a spicy start of the week, and Tyler Warren said, maybe he listens to Let's Talk Football Says. He surely does not listen to Let's Talk Football Says. However, he said, hold my fucking beer. I got your back, girls. And he came up and he showed out, and he was a clear target for Daniel Jones, again, who had a great appearance in week 1, but Tyler Warren looks like he's going to be a heavily involved part of that offense. Another tight end, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, both had great week 1s. Brock Bowers dealing with a little bit of an injury, so keep your radars up there as well. Another guy who showed great tight end potential in week 1 that I wouldn't be fully shipping just yet, but Harold Fanning Jr. did great in week 1, so just keep an eye on him in week number 2. If he steals more targets from David Njoku in week number 2, he might become a very valid fantasy option as well. All right, before we dive into week 1 sit starts, or actually before we dive into my rookie and vet of the week, which I already aired to my vet of the week of Puka Nacua, let's go over some primary week 1 injuries you need to keep in mind. George Kittle, tight end for the San Francisco 49ers, out missing multiple weeks. So he now becomes someone you put on your IR. I'm not dropping a George Kittle, okay? He's not out for the rest of the year. Don't drop him off the roster. Put him in an IR slot and come back to him later, okay? Pick up another guy. Obviously, your options aren't great, but you're going to pick up another midline tight end to replace George Kittle for now. Xavier Worthy haven't officially been ruled out, but does appear to be missing time. So again, that's something to keep your eye on. Guys like Hollywood Brown now are going to be heavy targets for Patrick Mahomes. So great options for the Kansas City Chiefs there if you need a wide receiver. Drake London doesn't appear to be listed out just yet, but he did suffer an injury in week number 1. So you just want to make sure you keep an eye on him as well. If for some reason Drake London is going to miss time, Kyle Pitts becomes even more of an unfortunate start, because you guys know how I feel about Pitty Pitts. He is not my favorite human in the world. However, if Drake London does miss time, Pitty Pitts, I guess, is going to be not the stinkiest option ever out there. Guys like Brock Bowers, again, he did have an injury. He briefly exited in week 1. We are still waiting to know for sure if that injury is something we need to have our eye on. Juwan Jennings appears to be missing time as well. He exited with a shoulder injury. The shoulder injuries were just all over the freaking place. Chris Olave briefly left in game 1, but again, did return. So just keep your eye on him as well. Obviously, we already talked about Puka Nacua. He played the rest of the game, so I'm not worried about it. Evan Ingram left the game in the 4th quarter with a calf injury and did not return. Again, he is possibly going to be missing time, so make sure you stay up on injury reports for him. Christian McCaffrey, no issues. Okay, don't freak out. However, I'm always going to keep him on my injury radar because he is so heavily injury prone. And so it's just someone you want to keep in mind when you're thinking fantasy. If you don't have Brian Robinson and you could potentially get Brian Robinson, the backup running back for the 49ers, that would be a great stash just in case Christian McCaffrey does go down. He will end up taking a lot of the target share, or he will be the running back 1 if CMC does end up going down. So those are our notable injuries at this point. Again, please keep in mind that on our Patreon, which if you're not a member of our Patreon already, you can go down to the bottom of the show notes and join our Patreon, where we will be updating more injury updates there. That way you can stay up on the news and make sure that you know who is in and who is out as we lead into kickoff Thursday, Sunday, and Monday as well, of course. So that is our week 1 recap and, of course, our injury reports for the week. Now, what I wanted to go over, rookie of the week, clear rookie of the week for me, Emeka Abuka. He had a great week number 1, and I'm so excited to see him continue to shine with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was also so freaking sweet to watch him score his first touchdown and have Mike Evans go over, get that football for him and say, you're going to need this, man. And it was just, I love when a veteran takes a little rookie under his wing. It makes my heart happy, okay? My vet of the week, like I already said, is Puka Nacua. He is just such a freaking warrior, and that man can't be taken out of the game. He doesn't want to get taken out of the game. He is a workhorse. He's a badass, and we love to see it. So he is my easy vet of the week. All right, let's go ahead and get into week 2 matchups. After my week 2 matchups, I will be doing my sweet and spicy starts of the week, and I'll also share Angie's sweet and spicy starts of the week, even though she is out. So let's get in to week 2 matchups. Keep in mind, I'm going to fire through these in somewhat of a very fluid format. So get your pen and paper out, take notes. And again, I hate to plug it, but if you want specific sit start strategies for your individual roster, we do sit starts every single week inside the Patreon where you can submit your entire roster and we will give you our opinions. Who you should sit, who you should start, maybe who you need to get the fuck off your roster, or maybe even other suggestions of like, hey, you're weak here, you need to fill this out, all of that kind of stuff. We just wrapped our first waiver wire live inside that Patreon as well. And again, you can subscribe down in the show notes to the Patreon. All right, let's dive in to week number 2 matchups. All right, game number 1, we are looking at the Washington Commanders at the Green Bay Packers. So we're going to start on the Washington Commanders side of the football. An easy start here, Jaden Daniels, you are starting him, dual threat quarterback, easy start. Specifically in those PPR leagues, you want a quarterback who's going to do more than just pocket pass. Pocket pass just means he's standing in the pocket and passing the ball. Jaden Daniels is not a pocket passer. He is going to move and groove around. He's going to take off, run. He's going to have an opportunity to score touchdowns, which we love when our quarterback score some tutties because hello to lots and lots of points. Another clear start from the Washington Commanders for the wide receiver room. We're going Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuels. Both of those guys can be in your starting lineup. A tight end that would be a great like mid-tier tight end. And when I say mid-tier tight end, I really mean anyone from Sam Laporta down on the tight end list is going to end up scoring pretty similarly. But Zach Ertz for the Commanders was targeted quite a bit from Jaden Daniels. He was last year as well. So he's appearing to be a good mid-tier tight end option, meaning he's going to score you consistently anywhere from 6 to 10 points. Could he have a completely bang out week where he scores multiple touchdowns? Yes, but it's just not likely. So Zach Ertz would be a good option if you need a tight end because maybe one of your tight ends got hurt. Guys that I would also think about starting would be the conversation between Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Austin Eckler. In my personal opinion, I would favor Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt over Austin Eckler. That is just my personal opinion. Obviously, yes, Austin Eckler did have more of the backfield this week. We saw a ton of production out of Krosky-Merritt, Bill for short, so I should probably just say Bill at this point. But Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt showed a ton of potential. He looked really great. Austin Eckler could also potentially be dealing with an injury. So if I had to start one of them because I was desperate in the running back position, it would be Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt over Austin Eckler. Moving into the Green Bay Packers, guys, you are starting Jordan Love. If he's your quarterback, he's still a solid quarterback option. He does have some run potential as well. Are there other guys I might consider starting over him? Sure, but Jordan Love is going to fall on par with like a Patrick Mahomes and a Drake May. So he's a solid option. Yes, he's going to use his legs just a little bit less, but he is still a movement-based quarterback. From a running back perspective, Josh Jacobs is going to be starting in your lineup as well. So that's an auto start for me. In the Packers side, the wide receiver room is just very questionable. There isn't a clear wide receiver run, so you're really kind of taking a shot on a guy week to week. The guys we're looking at is Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden. Now, Jaden Reed is likely not going to be practicing a ton because he's actively dealing with a foot fracture. So if you are thinking about starting someone on the Green Bay Packers, just know you're taking a big risk because one week Romeo Doubs, it could be his week, and the next week it could be Matthew Golden's week. So just know that these guys are a little bit risky because there's not a clear wide receiver one. They tend to split those targets up quite a bit, and these guys are what we call bang or bust, meaning they're either going to completely bust and score you little to no points, or they're going to bang and completely score you a ton of motherfucking points and be that guy for the week. Another good option on the Packers side of the football is the tight end Tucker Kraft. He is more that mid-tier tight end like I just talked about with Zach Ertz. However, I would preference Tucker Kraft over Zach Ertz if I were you. That is just my personal opinion. Sit options on the Green Bay side of the football. Devontae Wicks. Okay, we're just going to go Wicks because if you didn't know about this, I fucking suck at pronunciation. You'll get used to it. You'll deal with it. It's all good. So Wicks, he's dealing with a calf injury. I wouldn't even think about starting him in this week. If you are looking at starting someone like a Matthew Golden or a Romeo Doubs, other guys to consider over him might be someone like a Quentin Johnston, a Michael Pittman, a Cooper Kupp. If you want a safer bet, you go those guys. If you want a riskier bet, you go one of the wide receivers from the Green Bay Packers. Moving on to our next game here, Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. Who are we starting from the Ravens? Clear and obvious here. Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry. You are still going to start Zay Flowers for right now. Top target. He's been consistent in fantasy points. I'm playing him until he cools off. He's going to have a cool off period, just like he did similarly last year. So again, you just want to understand that the only risky part about this week with Zay Flowers is we just watched the Cleveland Browns defense absolutely fucking shut down. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, that entire offense struggled against the Browns defense. So my kind of antenna goes up and say, is the Browns defense that guy? So that does make Zay Flowers a little bit sketchy, but I still think he's a play this week, in my opinion. Obviously, Mark Andrews is still a play if he's your tight end there as well. Guys, I am sitting down from the Baltimore side of the football. Rashad Bateman, he is always going to be an option for you to flex. I just wouldn't flex him this week. I also am not going to flex him unless, again, I'm really looking for like a desperate play where I'm like, I'm going to fucking lose and I might as well take the shot on Rashad Bateman because he has the potential to go absolutely fucking crazy or goose egg me and give me 0 points, okay? Another guy I would sit, Justice Hill, back up to Derrick Henry. He's not a starting option for right now. On the Browns side of the football, this is just, the Browns are always going to be a little bit of a clusterfuck because what else would we expect from the Browns? Am I right? Okay, I'm a Steelers fan, so like you can take that with a grain of salt. But like they have been a clusterfuck for quite a while. You are going to sit down someone like a Joe Flacco. He's not your starting quarterback, okay? He's a true pocket passer. In order for him to have a fantasy productive week, he's going to have to pass a shit ton of touchdowns. He's not going to do that this week, all right? He's probably going to throw a few motherfucking picks this week. So we're sitting down Joe Flacco. I'm also going to sit down Dylan Sampson. Now, you might be targeting him on waiver wires. You might have picked him up on waiver wires. I am not starting him this week, and there's a simple reason for that. Quinshon Judkins did finally sign a contract, so it appears that he is going to make his way into the Browns backfield. So now there's 3 people sharing the backfield, and I just don't know what Dylan Sampson's role is going to look like enough yet. It doesn't mean it wasn't a good waiver wire pickup. It's just someone I'm not willing to start this week, in my opinion. Other options that I would start over him are guys like Javonte Williams, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, J.K. Dobbins. Those are all guys that I would think about starting ahead of any of the running backs from the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. All right, stardoms on the Browns side of the football. Like I said, the Browns are kind of a clusterfuck, right? So guys I am going to think about starting, Cedric Tillman, Jerry Jeudy. So these are 2 wide receivers that you can obviously look at starting in week number 2. Now, it is a little bit questionable. In my opinion, I would favor Cedric Tillman over Jerry Jeudy, which is not what most quote unquote, and if you're just listening, I have quotations up right now with my fingers, quote unquote, probably not what the fantasy pros would say. But I like Cedric Tillman's production better. I just think, in my opinion, he's going to be a more consistent wide receiver. So they are 2 both valid options for week number 2. But again, you could also look at these guys in the same range as like DJ Moore, Quentin Johnston, Romeo Doubs. So if you're thinking about other options, if you're worried about the Browns offense, those could be backups there too. Now, I would still consistently start David Njoku over Harold Fanning Jr. However, Harold Fanning Jr., 2 tight ends there right now. If for some reason they start to split a lot of target shares, which it kind of looked like they were already doing, then I might consider not starting either of those tight ends. However, for right now, until I know a little bit more, I would be comfortable starting a David Njoku in week number 2. So that is your Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens matchup. Moving on to Jacksonville Jaguars at the Cincinnati Bengals. So Jacksonville Jaguars, you can go ahead and smash that start button for your running back, Travis Etienne Jr., 100%. Brian Thomas Jr. I already talked about BTJ, right? BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ for short. I already talked to you about him. Yes, he had a low performing week. I think a lot of people are like, holy shit, should I sit him? Absolutely fucking not. Don't you dare. Start him, put him in your lineup. Same thing. Travis Hunter, start him, put him in your lineup. Trevor Lawrence apparently really loves him. Doesn't mean he's going to neglect BTJ. He will become an active part of their lineup. A guy you can also start on the Jaguars side of the football, Trevor Lawrence. If he's your quarterback this week, you can reliably, is that a word? You can rely on him. You can go ahead and give him a start. And then the tight end for the Jags, Bretton Strange. Again, not a bad tight end option if you're looking for a stream option potential. He's great. We had really low hopes for the Cincinnati defense. They didn't look too shitty in week number 1. However, are they going to show their true colors? Maybe, hopefully anyways. But if they don't, then maybe Bretton Strange is a little bit questionable, but I think Bretton Strange is a great option for you in week number 2. All right, for a notable addition here on the sit side of the Jacksonville Jaguars football, I don't know. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, that is, we are going to look at currently sitting Bishal Tootin. Now, keep in mind, they did just make that trade. Tank Bigsby went away from the Jaguars. He went over to the Eagles. So Bishal Tootin is now the second running back to Travis Etienne Jr. I'm not going to think about starting him by any means. However, he is an option available there for you as well. Just stash him on your bench. He's not a start option right now. On the Cincinnati Bengals side of the offense, clear starts here. This is not going to take a lot of time. You're starting your main guys. You're taking the shot on Joe Burrow still. Don't freak out. You're taking the shot on Jamar Chase. Don't you dare freak out. T. Higgins, Chase Brown, all reliable starters here. You're going to steer clear of any of the tight ends in the Cincinnati Bengals offense, because again, there isn't a clear tight end number one from that offense right now, so we're not going to waste our time. Moving on to the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. On the Giants side of the football, which they look messy right now, you have two wide receiver start options. Malik Neighbors is an obvious. If you're looking for a wide receiver 2-3 option, Wan'Dale Robinson is there. Russell Wilson did look his way quite a bit and did make connections with him quite a bit as well. So I don't think Wan'Dale Robinson is a moot point. I think he's still a part of the conversation. And if you're looking for someone in maybe a deeper league where you're like, shit, I couldn't get Quinshon Johnson, I couldn't get Hollywood Brown off the waivers, but Wan'Dale Robinson is just sitting in free agency and you need a wide receiver, could be a great wide receiver option, but he is more of that like flex play. He might do nothing, but he could have a ton of potential there as well. You're sitting Russell Wilson, he shouldn't even be rostered. Don't think about it. And then you're sitting Tyrone Tracy, again, split backfield, limited upside, not worth your time. Same thing with Cam Scatterbo. You are going to sit him as well until we know a little bit more about the running back room there for the Giants. On the other side of the football, the Cowboys. Now the Cowboys defense would be a great start this week because you're playing against Russell Wilson, who does not appear to be thriving. So the Cowboys defense could be a sneaky steal this week there. You're going to go ahead and start CeeDee Lamb. I'm giving George Pickens a start this week. I did suggest sitting him last week because I was worried. I wanted to see what it would look like. I would go ahead and say, take a shot on him. I think they're going to end up targeting. Dak Prescott did look very confident as a quarterback. He just struggled. And again, Dak Prescott is a pocket pass quarterback, meaning his upside as a quarterback is going to come from scoring tutties. And if he doesn't score touchdowns with passes, which he didn't this past week, his fantasy production is going to be quite low. So just keep that in mind. But CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Javonte Williams, Jake Ferguson, and Dak Prescott are all available start options. If you wanted to shift out of Dak Prescott and maybe go into someone like a Justin Fields, go for it. That's a completely fair decision for you to make there as well. The upside of Justin Fields is so much greater simply because why? Say it with me. He uses his motherfucking legs like a badass and we love it. Any of the other guys on the Cowboys, I would not be starting. Did I go over? I did both matchups, right? Yeah, I forgot. There was just no one to talk about on the Giants because they're not very good. All right, so that's Giants and Cowboys matchup. Moving on to Bears at the Detroit Lions. Listen, I know the Detroit Lions did not have a great week one, but again, hold your horses. It'll buff out. They're going to come out and they're going to have a great week this week. I just know it. So on the Bears side of the football, starting, you are going to go ahead and start a DJ Moore and a Roma Dunze. Roma Dunze appears to be their true wide receiver one. They used DJ Moore and they just were very creative with how they got DJ Moore the ball. So I think both of those guys are great starts for you in week number 2. DeAndre Swift, I don't love him as a start. If you don't have any other running back options, go for it. But I might favor starting someone like an Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason over DeAndre Swift. That is just my personal opinion. Caleb Williams, I think he's a solid start. Again, is he going to be someone I start over my more high potential quarterbacks? I'm not going to start Caleb Williams over a Bo Nix or a Baker Mayfield. But if you are struggling with your quarterback room and you're not sure what to do, Caleb Williams always going to have fantasy value simply because he does use his legs quite a bit. And he did show us that in week number 1 as well. Caleb looks great in the first half. Okay. Or first quarter, honestly, just the first quarter. And then it tapered from there. Right now, someone like a Colston Loveland, or if you picked him up as your tight end, he's going to stay on your bench. Right now, the target split with the tight ends is 50-50. So he's just not someone I can overly rely on at this point. That may change though. And I sure damn hope it does. Moving over to the Lions side of the football. Again, I know they scared you last week. Let's not get worried though. You're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're starting Jahmyr Gibbs. You're starting Sam Laporta. You're starting Jameson Williams. Williams. The only guy I'm sitting down is Isaac Tesla. He is not consistent enough to even think about starting. I know he had a big play there at the end of the game, but that does not make him relevant in their offense. I believe they're going to have a nice bounce back week and be using both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams so much more than they did in week 1. So don't get worried about that. Again, Jared Goff is still a good quarterback option. Again, he is touchdown dependent though as well, since he is a pocket pass quarterback. That doesn't make him bad, right? So is Joey B, and he went really high in fantasy football drafts, right? These guys aren't bad quarterbacks to have. They just do become very dependent on scoring a lot of touchdowns, which typically the Lions offense loves to score them some points. Now, David Montgomery, it was very clear in week number 1, in my opinion, that David Montgomery is running back 2. Last year, they split time pretty evenly. They would each have kind of like a standout game. It's not that way this year. Gibbs is their guy. And so in my opinion, David Montgomery becomes someone I'm not going to consistently think about flexing, and I would start guys over him. So I would start like a Jordan Mason over him. I would start a J.K. Dobbins over him. I would start a Javonte Williams over him, just because I'm not sure how many touches he's actually going to get either. Moving on, the New England Patriots and Miami Dolphins. So looking here, the starts from the New England Patriots: Drake May, go for it. Hunter Henry, go for it. And then Travion Henderson / Ramondre Stevenson, both good options here. Again, they're about to play the Miami Dolphins. So like the entire Miami Dolphins looked interesting, right? Interesting is the most PG word I can use there. Booty hole would be the signature Let's Talk Football sis world here. They looked just booty hole, okay? So there are people that I just want you to keep your eye on as great running back options this week because of who they're playing. I do believe Travion Henderson will become a great start later in the year as an auto start. Right now, he is still splitting a lot of time with Ramondre Stevenson. So either one of those guys are a go-ahead good option as a running back 2 option in your lineup. People you are going to go ahead and sit. Now, the only person who I would say no, honestly, those are the people you're just starting from the Patriots side of the football. There really wasn't anyone you should be rostered that you're really thinking about sitting. That would be like a considerable someone for me to say sit for. Starting on the Miami Dolphins side of the football. Lord bless. Lord bless. Okay, so Tua Tagovailoa, sit that motherfucker, okay? Do not. You could drop Tua Tagovailoa at this point. You don't need to even keep him as a bench spot of what if, just in case, don't do that. Put his ass down. You can sit him. You can sit him. Okay. Guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Etienne is an automatic start. Okay. He is going in my lineup for sure. But Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, I give it one more week. I'm going to give it one more week. Now, true, I have Jalen Waddle on one of my leagues. And this week, I'm going to sit Jalen Waddle and start Jamison Williams over Jalen Waddle. That's my personal opinion. I would give Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle one more week before I really worry about it. If the offense looks that bad again, now I'm going to start to think about maybe I start to move on from these guys, okay? So again, I'd give it one more week. It's hard to make just one decision off of week 1 because it's frankly not enough time. And we never want to if we made rash decisions, everyone would be dropping A.J. Brown, and you shouldn't fucking do that, right? Everyone would be dropping Jamar Chase, and he was the clear one-on-one in the draft. No one's going to be doing that. And so we don't want to make, again, it doesn't appear they're going to be good, but we don't want to make overly rash decisions there either, okay? So again, moving on to San Francisco 49ers at the New Orleans Saints, we are going to look at starts of Christian McCaffrey. You're starting him. You're starting Ricky Pearsall. In my opinion, Ricky Pearsall is the only start here, specifically if Brock Purdy is hurt. There are some rumors that Brock Purdy isn't going to be starting. If Brock Purdy's a go, you can go ahead and throw him in your lineup and start him. If for some reason he is going to miss next week due to an injury, I'm only going to think about starting Ricky Pearsall on CMC and no one else from the no one else from the 49ers because George Kittle is out. Again, he's going to miss several weeks there as well. Keep an eye on Brian Robinson. Am I going to start Brian Robinson? No. But I want to keep an eye on him because, again, Christian McCaffrey is high injury risk. The entire 49ers lineup is an injury risk at this point. And so it's just, you always want to keep your eye on backups when we're talking about the 49ers, okay? All right, moving on to the Saints. The only 2 players I'm going to start from the Saints, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave. Really, the rest of that team is not going to be reliable starts at this point. So the only 2 players I'm considering from the Saints side of the football. Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. Both of the Bills looked great against the Ravens last week. So guys, I'm starting from the Bills. It should be a no-brainer here. Josh Allen, 100%. Dalton Kincaid as a great tight end option here. Again, mid-tier tight end like I talked about before, but he'd also be a great option. Keon Coleman, I would go Keon Coleman over Khalil Shakir. Both play for the Bills, obviously, but I would preference Keon Coleman over Khalil Shakir. However, both guys are great options. I just think that Keon Coleman is going to continue to take over a lot as a wide receiver one. He looked great, connected really well with Josh Allen. Now, again, his numbers were inflated because they were coming back from a loss, right? So anytime a team's trying to make a comeback, they're going to throw the ball more. So you're going to see Keon Coleman's production dip a little bit this week, which is very normal. I don't want you to freak out about that. That's also why I think James Cook is an auto start. Did he have a great week this week? No, they had to pass the fucking ball all the time in order to score big points. But James Cook is a great running back to also put in your starting lineup as well. On the Jets side of the football, there are three guys I'm looking at. Justin Fields, he should be a start this week. If he's not rostered and you're looking to upgrade at the quarterback position, that would be a great option. Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall as well are both auto starts for the week on the Jets side of the football. Now, the only thing you want to think about is remember, Sauce Gardner for the New York Jets is going to be given one of these wide receivers the sauce treatment, okay? So just keep that in mind. If Keon Coleman's production does dip this week, again, don't freak out about that. Guys are going to ebb and flow based on who they're playing, so just keep that in mind as well. Moving on to our next game here, we have Steelers versus the Seahawks, SS. That was like a tongue twister for me to get out when I was saying it, like practicing all of my words out loud. I was like, Steelers, Seahawks. It kept coming out very weird. Nonetheless, guys, you are starting on the Steelers side of the football. We're going to go ahead and start DK Metcalf. Calvin Austin is a great option, specifically if you're looking for a waiver wire pickup, or if you did pick him up on waiver wires, he is a valid start in this next week. They're playing against the Seahawks. I think that would be a great option there for sure. And specifically knowing that, I was going to say something else, but I lost my train of thought. Don't worry about that. So Calvin Austin would be a great option. More of that like wide receiver 3 flex. So you're looking at options like Calvin Austin, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen. Those are all kind of those same tiered players there that you could look at starting in the week number 2. Jonnu Smith, I don't know if I'd go ahead and stream him this. He could be a great streaming tight end throughout the year. He might not be like a tight end I start every single week, but Arthur Smith did draw up a lot of plays that targeted Jonnu Smith. I would probably like sit and wait to see what Jonnu Smith does in week number 2. If he continues to take most of the target share away from Freiermuth, then I would go Jonnu Smith as a great tight end streamer. Jaylen Warren, he's beat up. If he is healthy, he's a viable running back option. Just more of that lower tier. When you're thinking Jaylen Warren, you're thinking J.K. Dobbins, you're thinking Javonte Williams. Those guys are going to live in a very similar tier together. If you're thinking like Travis Etienne, Jaylen Warren, I'm going Travis Etienne. If you're looking at someone like Jaylen Warren or J.K. Dobbins, I'm going J.K. Dobbins. If you're looking Jaylen Warren, Javonte Williams, I'm going Javonte Williams for right now, right? So just some guys to think about that fall into the same tier. I'm sitting Kenneth Gainwell. He's not going to start. If Tyler Warren were to go down, then Kenneth Gainwell would be a great start from there. On the Seahawks side of the football, you're going to sit down Sam Darnold. You're going to start JSN. Jesus Christ, he looked great. He is the true wide receiver 1 on that team. We'd love to see it. Cooper Kupp could be a flex option, but it's pretty risky. I'm going to go like a Quentin Johnston, a Hollywood Brown, a Calvin Austin, a Keenan Allen, a Keon Coleman over a Cooper Kupp. That's just my personal opinion. Now, talking about the running back room from the Seahawks, oh my goodness, I am worried about Kenneth Walker. Now, again, I am a Kenneth Walker manager. I have him on one of my teams and I'm like, shit, I had a Kenneth Walker or Chuba Hubbard decision and I went Kenneth Walker and I'm kind of kicking myself for it. It appears that Sharps is going to lead that backfield. If for some reason Kenneth Walker doesn't have a bounce back week, then you're going to end up seeing way more Zach Charbonnet. So in my opinion, Zach Charbonnet is someone you could consider starting. You might consider sitting Kenneth Walker this week if your roster can allow that. Meaning if you have another option, if you were going to take a stream on a Javonte Williams or a J.K. Dobbins, I might throw him in over Kenneth Walker this week. All right, moving on to our next game, our next matchup, Rams versus Titans. We have a few guys who I would hands down start. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyren Williams. So wide receivers and Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, get them in your lineup. Kyren Williams, running back, get him in your lineup. Now, I'm personally not going to think about putting Matthew Stafford on my roster. Again, he might have really, really great fantasy point weeks, which can be super duper distracting, right? Because we're like, oh my goodness, he scored so many points. I need to roster him. But keep in mind, he is a pocket passer. So he is reliant on throwing touchdowns. So he's going to have great weeks and then he's going to score like 7-point weeks. It's just going to happen. So he's not someone I'm willing to roster. Also, Matt Stafford is like one hit away from a fucking big ass injury. So just keep that in mind there as well. That's everyone from the Rams side of the football. On the Titans side of the football is just awkward right now. Again, obviously the Titans are playing the Rams. Good defense here. So am I worried about Tony Pollard against the Rams defense? Yes. Would I consider giving Tony Pollard a go in week 2? Also, yes, that's questionable, right? I was talking to my husband about it and he's like, oh shit, I wouldn't do that. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes we say fucking risk it for the biscuit here on this corner of the internet. I would risk it for the biscuit on Tony Pollard, but I don't know if I'd risk it for the biscuit on Calvin Ridley until I know more about what his usage is going to look like with Cam Ward. I wouldn't be starting Cam Ward. And again, the only person I would think is Calvin Ridley. But again, when I'm thinking about Calvin Ridley, I'm probably going to favor someone like a Cedric Tillman or a J.K. Dobbins or a Javonte Williams over Calvin Ridley in a flex, as opposed to starting Calvin Ridley in week number 2. Next up, we have the Panthers versus Cardinals. Again, the only people from the Panthers, this is easy. 2 people you're thinking about start, or you can go ahead and start. Ted McMillan, Chuba Hubbard. Nobody else gets to start. That includes Bryce Young. Cardinals side of the football looks way better, and also love the Cardinals defense against the Panthers here as well. So Cardinals side of the football, Kyler Murray, love him this week. James Conner, absolutely. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, all of those guys go in. Someone just to like think about or just keep on your radar right now, Trey Benson. Not that I'm going to start him unless I really was freaking desperate. I'm not starting Trey Benson. He did a good amount of work. However, I'm targeting Trey Benson simply because James Conner does get hurt often. So he's just someone that like I have on my radar. If James Conner does go down, Trey Benson's going to lead that backfield. So not someone I'm starting in week 2, but someone I'm just keeping in mind as I move through fantasy football, because this is what we do, right? We think 10 steps ahead so we can feel prepared. Broncos versus Colts. So the Colts are going to go from playing a booty hole Miami Dolphins, okay, scoring big points, to the hardest defense in the league, Denver Broncos. This is why I'm saying taper your expectations with Daniel Jones, okay? I know most of our eyes are like, holy shit, he scored so many points, but we don't want to I almost knocked the mic over, okay, because I'm that aggressive. Well, that's just my style. But nonetheless, we don't want to make any decisions. In week number 2, could I get burnt by saying this? Yes, but like I'm probably not going to start Daniel Jones unless you have a gut of steel, okay? He's going to have a hard time in week number 2. So like that's not someone I'm looking at, right? Again, we got shiny object syndrome because they played a shitty Miami Dolphins. We don't want that to impede us in week number 2. So I would probably sit him. Again, we're looking at Michael Pittman Jr., who had a great week 1. I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and play him in week 2 if I have another option like a Quentin Johnston. Again, thinking more wide receiver 45 to 50 range. So if you look up like who are the wide receivers 45 to 50, anyone in that range would be a start you could put in over Michael Pittman Jr. because again, he's going to be getting a very, very difficult defense. The only like auto starter for me on this side of the football are 2 players. So obviously, number 1, Jonathan Taylor, he can start. And I would still start Tyler Warren this week. But everyone else, I would definitely pause and think about. I'm sitting down Josh Downs for sure. Broncos. Again, it's a messy offense right now. I'm starting J.K. Dobbins. I think he's a clear start. You can go ahead and do that. I'm also going to still full send on Bo Nix. Give it another week, okay? Again, he was one of my it'll buff out players. Give him another week. I don't want you to overly freak out about it just yet. But again, I would start him. And I would also go ahead and start Cortland Sutton as another great option from the Denver Broncos side of the football as well. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and sit down. I'm going to sit down RJ Harvey for now. He could be a great steal if you have him. Sit him on your bench. Sit down Marvin Mims. Sit down Troy Franklin until we know more about what the wide receiver 2 is going to look like and what the overall Broncos offense is going to look like right now. But again, my true starters there are Bo Nix, J.K. Dobbins, Cortland Sutton are all guys I'm going to go ahead and throw into the lineup. Evan Ingram does appear to be injured. So again, just keep that on your radar there as well. Eagles versus Chiefs, Super Bowl last year. They rematch up. This is going to be a game. And this is also why I'm very hot on you not freaking out about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, because this is going to be where we see them come back to life, okay? So starts here. Jalen Hurts, duh. Saquon Barkley, of course, right? I'm starting A.J. Brown. I'm starting Devontae Smith. If you have Dallas Goedert, think he's a great streaming, safe floor tight end. Again, midline tight end option would be a great option for you as well. From the Chiefs side of the football, Patrick Mahomes, he's still a great, reliable quarterback. Again, I might look at someone like a Justin Fields over a Patrick Mahomes simply for the upside of Justin Fields scoring touchdowns, running the ball, passing, all of that kind of stuff. However, Patrick Mahomes is still a reliable quarterback. Travis Kelce still a reliable tight end. I did wish we saw a little bit more from him once Xavier Worthy went out last week. We did get the upside of Travis scoring a touchdown, so his points were a little bit higher. But without that, he wouldn't have had a great week. So I'm hoping maybe he makes a little bit more of an appearance this week. Hollywood Brown, again, if he's not rostered and if he's on, if you picked him up off of waivers or for some godforsaken reason he's still on free agency, you can go ahead and pick him up and start him this week as well. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and sit down. I'm going to go ahead and sit down as Isaiah Pacheco. Again, obviously the Eagles defense aren't scrubs. They're good, right? And the start, one of the highlights of the Eagles defense was ejected within 6 seconds of the game last week when he spat on Dak Prescott. That was fucking nasty, by the way. Unnecessary bullshit. Nonetheless, he'll be back this week. And I think that is going to end up shutting down a lot of the run where Javonte Williams got through. Because of that, Isaiah Pacheco's not going to be awarded that unless this man decides to spat on Patrick Mahomes, which, if that's the case, he needs to fucking go away. All right. So that is also a consideration of someone that I would go ahead and sit down. He's also sharing a good amount of time with Hunt right now, and I don't love that shared backfield. Guys, I would start over Isaiah Pacheco, someone like a Chuba Hubbard, maybe even someone like a Sharbs, Zach Charbonnet for Sharbs for short. So yeah, those are some options there. Falcons versus Vikings. On the Falcons side of the football, I like Michael Penix Jr. Again, if you're in a deeper league where there's not a ton of quarterback options, or if you're in a super flex, I think Michael Penix Jr. is a great option here. Drake London, uncertain with his injury. If he's out, obviously you're not starting him. If he's in and a go for week 2, you could go ahead and throw him in your lineup. Kyle Pitts becomes a really great option here. Regardless, I think he's still going to be a great option again, even though I hate Kyle Pitts. He's still a really, really great option here as well. So just keep that in mind. And another player is Bijan Robinson. Again, just keep him in mind don't keep in mind, start him. He's a clear start every single time. Kyle Pitts is someone that he's going to be very mid-tier, like I talked about with other tight ends. So Kyle Pitts is a start specifically if London misses time, but I would start him anyways if he's your current tight end. And then again, Bijan Robinson, you smash that start button every single time. We saw amazing potential out of him in week number 1, and I think we will only see more as the weeks progress here. Again, Tyler Algier, he is a stash. If Bijan goes down, Algier will take the backfield. He's not a starting position player right now. Moving into the Vikings, we have JJ McCarthy. He made his NFL debut on Monday Night Football. So talk about intense. I still think he's a risky rookie. He's going to sit on my bench for now. If you have him rostered, I wouldn't start him right now, but I would wait to see how he performs because he may just come out swinging later in the year and become a very nice streaming quarterback option later for you. If you are looking at the other or Vikings side of the football still, we're looking at Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, both running back options from the Vikings are go ahead and start. Justin Jefferson is an auto start, obviously. And then also TJ Hawkinson, tight end for the Vikings, is there as well. Adam Thielen, you're sitting him down on the bench. We don't know anything about him yet. He's not someone you're going to put in your starting lineup. Buccaneers versus Texans. Baker Mayfield, solid streaming quarterback right now. Mike Evans, again, put him in your lineup, okay? Trust it. Put him in your lineup. Emeka Abuka, you could go ahead and put him in your lineup again. Do I think Emeka Abuka is going to score that many points every single week? No. I think they are going to start to favor Mike Evans as well. But again, they are going to share time, so both of these guys are starters. Bucky Irving, starter. Cade Otton, for now, I'm going to sit, but keep an eye on his health. If he comes back as a healthy tight end, he'd be a great streaming tight end. Rachaad White, sitting him on my bench right now. Again, I'm not playing Rachaad White unless Bucky gets hurt. It's been clear by the Bucs that Rachaad is the backup. He's just not getting enough target share to make him a reliable, consistent option. Even though he's a pass-catching running back, it's just not enough work for me to trust it and for me to put him in my lineup over a guy who gets more of the backfield. Texans, CJ Stroud, I'm going to sit him down for now. I don't trust him. I'm worried about his performance, so he's just not someone I'm going to rely heavily on right now. That doesn't mean we sit the rest of his team, though, okay? We're going to go ahead and start Nico Collins. That's someone you still want to put into your starting lineup here as well. Dalton Schultz, again, I would sit him. I would go someone like an Ertz, a Henry, a Mark Andrews over him personally. Chuck or Kraft would fall into this category as well. So I'm not going to really worry about that either. I'm going to sit down a Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb is very heavily touchdown dependent, which simply just means you're going to be sad if you play him and he doesn't score a touchdown because he's just not going to score a lot of points. If he happens to score a tutty that week, you'll be very happy. So I just think there's a little bit too much unknown there for me to really want to think, okay, I'm going to start him in my lineup. That would be a desperate option for me, only if I absolutely needed to. All right, we're almost done. I promise. This is actually the last matchup, Chargers versus Raiders. So looking on the Chargers side of the football, there was a lot of action here for the Chargers. So Justin Herbert, you can go ahead and start him. Omarion Hampton, abso-freaking-lutely. He got a ton of opportunities, so don't be worried about that. Start him. He's favored over Najee Harris. You're sitting the running back Najee Harris. You're starting Omarion Hampton. Keenan Allen, start. Quentin Johnston, start. If I'm thinking, though, I'm going Keenan Allen over Quentin Johnston. Okay. Doesn't mean you can't start Quentin Johnston. I'm just going to say Keenan Allen is going to be a favorable wide receiver over him. So if you're looking at two different waiver wire options, I like Keenan Allen better. Again, obviously most waiver wires have already run at this point, but if someone is still on a free agency for godforsaken reasons, go ahead and snag one of those guys. Ladd McConkey, obvious start there as well. On the Raiders side of the ball, again, facing a hard matchup against the Chargers defense, who looked great in week 1 against Kansas City. So again, starting Ashton Genty, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, if he's healthy. He was on the injury report earlier in this episode, so just keep that earmarked for yourself as well. Jack Besh, I always say that name wrong. Ange usually corrects me, but I think I got it right. He is going to be a sit. Geno Smith is going to be a sit here as well. So those are all of your rapid fire-ish, because I tend to be an over-explainer. Those are your week 2 sit-start options from every single week 2 matchup, baby. We did it. To wrap up this episode, what I really want to go over is our sweet and spicy starts of the week, because we love this segment of our podcast. And just to give you some maybe options of, yes, sweet and spicy starts that maybe you wouldn't think about, but maybe you risk it for the biscuit on and go for it anyways. So I'm going to start with Ange's sweet and spicy option. So Ange, for her sweet option, she went with Zach Charbonnet. Again, she feels very similar to myself that Zach Charbonnet is going to end up taking over a lot of that backfield. And at this point, we are a little concerned about Kenneth Walker. And so Charbonnet would be a sweet start of the week for you. A spicy start. Very spicy, because I don't know if I fully agree with her, but that is okay. She spicy started Caleb Williams. Again, he had a lot of production in the first quarter of the game. It did get inconsistent after that. But if he can still continue to connect with Roma Dunze, continue to connect with DJ Moore, and use his legs like he typically does, I don't hate this spicy start of the week of Caleb Williams. Now, for my sweet and spicy starts of the week, my sweet start is Emeka Abuka. I am sweet on him, my friends, and I love him as a week 2 start. And honestly, a consistent starter for your leagues moving forward. My spicy start of the week. Now, this is also highly spicy specifically because of this player's week 2 matchup. And I told you to pump your brakes on him. And then I'm going to call him my spicy start of the week. So I'm just going to confuse the shit out of you. But my spicy start of the week is Daniel Jones. Listen, I live in 2 places with Daniel Jones. I'm very scared for him against the Denver Broncos. I'm also not super convinced that he's going to be that guy. One good game. We've seen a lot of shit from Daniel Jones over the years. However, we saw a different quarterback come out for the Colts, and I like to see that. This could be a player that highly upsets you, or maybe all of us are so worried about the Denver offense, but maybe Daniel Jones isn't. He looked great in week number 1, and I'm hoping he continues that, because I would love to see him shine in the Colts offense. So it's a very, very spicy, hot, like the decibels of heat on the heat radar for any restaurant. It's at the very tippy top. He is a spicy start. But if you're willing to be a little risque and risk it for the biscuit, baby, you can go ahead and throw Daniel Jones into your lineup, and then don't yell at me if he doesn't perform. Okay. Glad we're under that agreement. All right, guys, that is our episode 6 of Let's Talk Football Sis, week 2 recap of all of your fantasy football sit and starts. Like we always mention, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any questions, comment them below so we can feature them in our segments moving forward. And then also keep in mind to follow us on TikTok, on Instagram at Let's Talk Football Sis. And yes, we did start a Patreon where we offer individualized roster advice, weekly waiver wire live, so you can talk with myself and Ange every single week. And then we're also going to be doing lives ahead of game day, so you can feel super prepared every single week. So if you want exclusive content and to be in a little bit more of an intimate room with me and Ange, make sure you join the Patreon, which is also linked below in the show notes. We cannot wait for week 2 of Fantasy Football Kickoff. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. And I know it was a solo episode, so hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of Let's Talk Football, sis. Have a great week, guys.